this month, and we're lucky because we have take command of the MREA this morning, and we're so lucky to have Gary and Nikki Ubaldini going to start us off this morning because they're going to talk to us about the MREA, and we're going to follow that up with Dolores, who's going to talk to you guys about the economic model. Kevin's going to talk to you about the lead gen model, and then we're going to have Brett come in and talk about the budget model, and then finally Eric will finish us off with the organizational model, and then not last but not least is going to be Mabel. She's going to be doing all this in Spanish for you. So if you want to come back and see any of the others, feel free to jump in whatever one you want. You don't have to stay here the whole day. However, we appreciate you coming on. And we are going to be recording all of these, and all of these will be put up on our website for you to come back and watch if you need to. All right. So Gary, Nikki, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
We're great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
We really appreciate this, and I'm looking forward to this. So rather than me sitting in here say Gary and Nikki, for those of you guys who are on here don't know who they are, can you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Go ahead.
Well, we're actually the operating partners of the South Florida region. And we were mega agents when we joined Keller Williams. So we joined as a mega team. And shortly thereafter, we were given the opportunity to take on the South Florida region. We currently own 3 market centers, 2 title companies, and we still have a mega team that's 7th leveled. We don't physically go out listing and selling anymore, but we do have a team that does. And our son-in-law is pretty much running that with another operations manager, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's who we are.
And
you guys are amazing.
Yes, very. And what did you do before you got into real estate?
Nikki was a dancer.
Not a stripper.
I was notice how I let her say that this time. I was a guitar player, musician. We met at Innisbrook in Tarpon Springs, way back, probably before most of you guys were born.
Probably
1980.
1980. Yeah, 1980.
1980.
Yeah, so long time ago, guys. That's almost 42, almost 43 years ago.
Yeah.
So
Great. And what brought you into real estate from that?
Well, we had a bad experience buying real estate. We bought our first real estate property right before we took a job in Canada. It was an entertainment job in Canada, and it was a little house and holiday. It was our first home. In fact, it was 4th of July weekend. We painted the whole thing, the whole 4th of July weekend, and we moved in. We lived in it for exactly 1 month and got the call to go to Canada. And we said, okay, we'll go. And so we put a tenant in it. So we thought, oh, this is fun. We like this owning real estate.
So real estate investors overnight.
Yeah, overnight we became an investor. So when we were in Canada, where we got married, we decided to purchase. Yeah, we did.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
we did. We decided to purchase a house, and it was actually a friend of ours' father. And while he was a great guy, he showed us everything we couldn't afford. And it was, you hear the realtor story of the nightmare of they're showing you everything you can't afford, and you're like, but we can't afford that. We can't buy that. And so when he finally started showing us things we could afford, we made an offer, and they countered us, and we wanted to counter offer again. And he told us, oh, no, you can't do that. So yeah, he guided us wrong. And so we kind of felt, we were the classic buyer. We felt like we overpaid, classic buyer. But it was fine until we decided we needed to come back to Florida and work back here in Florida. And we took a massive hit on the sale of that property. We re-rented it for a year.
First mistake. The reason we rented it was because my stubborn male Italian ego wouldn't let me lose money on the sale of a house, because you're not supposed to lose money when you sell a house. But it was only a couple of years after we bought the house.
Yeah. And so, Canada's a little different in the way their financing and everything works.
Right.
So
you don't get, yeah.
It's not a 30-year. You don't get deductions for your interest and all of that. So we actually took a hit when we did finally sell it. We let a tenant live in it. The mistake was it was a musician, and they literally trashed the house. So we ended up coming to the closing table with pretty much all of our savings.
Yeah, about $10,000.
$10,000
to buy the interest rate down, so the buyer that was buying it could buy it at the time
in Canada, because the market was in the tank in Canada. So, you know, we thought, oh, that didn't taste very good. That didn't feel very good. But while we were in Canada, we had also purchased another home with our sister here in Florida. She wanted to buy a house, but she couldn't qualify a loan. So we co-signed with her. So when we moved back to Florida, we moved in with her, and we thought, we like this real estate investing thing.
We figured we better learn about what we're doing so we don't make the same mistakes again. We can't take another hit like that. So we decided to get our real estate license, and never with the intention of selling.
No, we were just going to be investors. We're never going to sell, we said.
Right.
Never going to sell. Well, that was 30.
Just like we're never going to own real estate.
Yeah, we're never going to own a real estate office either. There was just not one.
Right, right. There you go.
So that's how it happened. And then the rest is history.
When you got your license, where'd you hang it?
We were at ERA XL Realty. They actually had this, there was an advertisement in the paper. Yes, some of you don't even know what a newspaper is back then. And it was, you know, we'll pay for your license. If you got to come in for an interview. And if you hang your license here for a year, we'll pay for you to get your license. And we thought, oh, this is great. We'll get somebody else to pay for it. And we're never going to sell real estate, so it doesn't matter. So they agreed. And we were still working 6 nights a week.
At Innisbrook.
At Innisbrook.
We came back to Innisbrook from Canada.
Yeah. So we did the crash course, you know, the 7-day crash course. So we were at, you know, all day long, 8 in the morning till 5 at night. Then we were getting to the show, doing the show until 1 o'clock in the morning. So it was a long week. And that was in 1986. And then we took our state license. Used to have to go to Orlando for that. And we got that in April of 86. And then they invited us to come to one of their team meetings, you know, their office meeting, and they challenged us. And the biggest thing, and you don't challenge Gary and Nikki. And next thing you know, we were doing real estate by day and entertainment by night for the first 5 years of our career. So we worked about 18 hours a day.
It wasn't work. It didn't feel like work. We were just building our future. We thought, we felt we were trying to, real estate excited us at the time. We were learning different things. We were watching other people succeed and do well, and it inspired us. So we thought that we could, and we weren't too secure in the entertainment business at the time. We didn't believe that the producer at Innisbrook was going to continue to keep his job. So we figured we better get something going, especially if we wanted to have a family, because we didn't have any kids yet. And we wanted to have something more stable and more secure.
Right.
Real estate, right?
Stable stuff, you know. But you know, when we made in 1 month what we made all year is when we knew it was time that this was our business. I ended up leaving the entertainment business first because the show closed for the dancers, and I was still teaching, but that our business doubled when that happened.
Well, that was 3 years. That was 89, wasn't it? 88, 89?
Something like that.
Yeah.
And then Gary, it was about 2-3 years later, he left the entertainment business, and our business quadrupled. So yeah, it quadrupled. It was, but we were selling 100 homes.
It was more a factor of what we were learning, not me getting out of the entertainment business.
Well, you had time, and it wasn't so. Yeah. When you had the aha that entertainment was interfering in our real estate.
Yeah,
career.
it was just and it wasn't as much fun as it used to be.
It was a distraction. He wasn't playing the music he liked.
Right at that point too. So yeah.
So that was our story.
Well, this was the late 80s, early 90s. I mean, we were still working full time at night, and we built it up to like 80, 90 houses, almost 100 houses a year.
Working at night and doing real estate by day.
At the company we were at, they used to tease us that, I used to drive a Datsun 210 hatchback, rusting out because from the snow in Canada.
And the AC didn't work.
Yeah. So it was great closing technique for Nikki when she took buyers out.
Because it was hot, and it was like, okay, you want to keep looking? No, we'll buy this one. So yeah.
So what point did you guys actually hear the name Gary Keller?
Oh, well, we were in a mastermind group. We were at RE/MAX prior, and we started at ERA. We were there for 3 years, and then we went to RE/MAX. And not to toot our own horn, but we were the #1 agents in the state of Florida. And we got the opportunity to meet some of these other really awesome people in a mastermind group, was a husband and wife mastermind group. And this all happened through Star Power, which was Howard Brinton. We were interviewed back in 1994.
That's where we met Jimmy and Linda McKissick.
Jimmy and Linda McKissick. And we were in this mastermind group with them, and Linda and Jimmy would talk about this guy, Gary Keller. And one of the things that in this group, it was a husband and wife group, and they were all top agents from all over the country, from all different companies. And we always used to try to figure out, what should we be spending? You know, like, what should we spend on advertisement? What should we spend on employees? What should, you know, what should our expenses be? And we all had things categorized differently. We were all over the place. And one day Jimmy said, well, you know, that Gary Keller, because they were in Keller Williams, but they didn't understand what Keller Williams was. They weren't really involved in Keller Williams that much, other than they were their top agents. But they didn't understand profit sharing, nothing. And they said, you know, well, Gary Keller, he has this budget model for all of his offices. Maybe he'll help us. And we all said, okay. So he offered to, Gary Keller said, sure, give me your P&Ls and I'll see what I can do. And
that was how we heard about him, was in that mastermind.
Was in that mastermind.
That's not how we met him.
No, that's not how we met him.
And we met him at a Howard Brinton Star Power function in Fort Lauderdale. Actually, we were talking to some friends. Jimmy and Linda had gotten kicked out of Keller Williams because their broker owner at the time wanted to convert to Century 21. So she asked them if they wanted to join. And Jimmy and Linda didn't want to join her, so she booted them. So Jimmy and Linda,
they were the #1 agents in Keller Williams, and she booted them.
And Gary Keller had no control over that. But at the time, there were a lot of RE/MAX agents getting booted that were in our networking group. So I was really upset that these people were getting kicked out of the company for no apparent reason. So and Jimmy and I and Nikki and Linda are really good friends already. So I'm, you know, saying, what the heck are you doing? He started talking to Gary Keller. I said, what are you doing talking to Gary Keller? I mean, he let you get kicked out of the company. He said, Gary, I don't believe everything. He's got everything manualized, systematized, checklisted. It's unbelievable what operation that he has. I said, you're crazy for talking to him. He let you get kicked out of the company. So we're in Fort Lauderdale, and we go to have dinner with Jimmy and Linda and a group of people. And I'm at another table talking to some friends over there. Nikki's sitting down already. So I come over, and I hear them talking about Jimmy and Linda getting kicked out of Keller Williams. So I said, you know, what the heck does that Gary Keller think about that crap? And Jimmy says, I don't know. Why don't you ask him? He's sitting right here.
And he still allowed us to join Keller Williams after all that. Yeah. Gary Keller said, I think it sucks. Sit down, Gary. Let's talk about it. So 3 hours later, after a really long conversation, and that was our first introduction to Gary Keller.
He was very transparent. He talked about mistakes he made, you know, and we talked about mistakes we made. And he talked about the company and what the needs of the company were. His family, his son was about the same age as our kids. So it was a great meeting.
And then that's when Jimmy said, let's ask Gary to help us. And he said, yes. So hence, that was the very, very first mega camp ever. There was 27 of us. And I think there was only 6 or 7 Keller Williams agents. The rest were all people that were not with Keller Williams, that were from our mastermind group. And that was the very, very first mega camp. And from then on, every year, mega camp happened.
Mm-hmm.
So is that a restaurant at a table?
No, it was actually in Austin. And it was Austin Southwest, the Omni Southwest, South Park, Omni South Park. We still remember it well. And it started there. And that's where Gary Keller used to teach every single class, or Keller Williams, every single class. And he wrote them all and he taught them all. And so we went to
Dave Jenks too.
Well, yeah, Dave Jenks with him. You're right. Yeah. We went to training for 2 years before we joined Keller Williams. So
that was mostly my fault, because I'm a little slow and methodical. Nikki's more fast and, you know, external responder. She was ready to go sooner. But it was Keller Boo here, and you know, we had been #1 at RE/MAX 4 years in a row, and in the state of Florida, and in the top 10 in the company for a couple of years. So it was a big risk for us to even consider making a move when Keller Williams was a non-entity here. Besides being RE/MAX trained, I didn't believe any broker owner could make any money, because every broker owner at RE/MAX always cried about not making any money, and that's because they put a RE/MAX franchise in every street corner. You know, they don't give you an opportunity to build build a high volume number of agents. So we watched, and I wanted to catch them. I wanted to catch them not walking their talk. But for 2 years, I didn't.
No.
And I say for how many years now? 24 years?
Mm-hmm.
I haven't not caught them walking their talk.
Right.
Gary Keller and Mo Anderson. That is.
Right.
You know? So it's been a special relationship and a profound blessing for us to be with Gary and Keller Williams. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
It's changed our lives. It's changed the way we raised our kids. The education was just remarkable.
Yeah.
You know,
it wasn't about just selling another house. It was the education of business mindedness. That's why the MREA book is so important, because it's all about business. It's about thinking about your business more than it just being another sale. And, you know, when Gary first had this vision of the 7 levels, it was on a napkin, guys. It was the 7 levels of a real estate agent was on a napkin. He's so conceptual. You'll see I have a flip chart. I mean, I learned that. He thinks in pictures, and he taught us to conceptualize on flip charts. And some of the newer folks in Keller Williams don't understand that. Then why are we using that? No, this is old school Gary Keller. To this day, if you go and sit with Gary Keller, he'll pull out a flip chart. I had a Zoom call with him about 3 weeks ago, and he has 3 flip charts. And he just got up and he started working on the flip chart and teaching. And I was on there with him with a $1 billion agent, and here he was teaching. And you know, the agent was like in awe, and I mean, I was in awe. I couldn't take notes fast enough. And it's just such a blessing to be able to be there with him and learn that. And basically, MREA was written from all of our mistakes. Well, not just us, but all the people that are in it, because we didn't do things perfectly. We did things kind of try to do them organically. Well,
that original mastermind group, after looking at all the P&Ls, he says, "Do you guys run a business, or you just have P&Ls to prove how much money you didn't make for tax purposes?" Ouch.
Ouch is right.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was pretty ouchy.
Yeah.
Gary was pretty direct, and I mean, there was a lot of between the eyes conversations, which was wonderful. I mean, and Gary was really just getting us down to the nitty gritty of what does it look like to run a real business. And so what he did with the MREA is he thought, wow, this is interesting. He had this group of agents in front of him that were all top agents from all different companies. And then he started reaching out to other agents that were in and outside of our company, and interviewing them, finding out what they were doing, finding out their best practices, and then putting it, kind of overlaying it, you know, and seeing where things were very common that people were doing and things that weren't so common that were working. And that was his biggest, that was the success of MREA, because it truly came out of the wisdoms of people who were doing it out in the field.
Yeah, I mean, MREA is his ahas from interviewing the top agents in the world, basically. And it's interesting, his inspiration to start writing books, because he never thought about writing books until our mastermind group. It was our mastermind group. And then all of a sudden he said, "Gary, you know," I realized he was listening to a cassette, not CD.
Somebody don't even know what a cassette is.
By Mark Victor Hansen, called The Aladdin Factor. Mm-hmm. If you want to get inspired, that.
Still
listen to it.
Valuable.
It's very inspirational and all about thinking big and manifesting. You know,
it's like Think and Go Rich.
What you want, right? So anyway, he said, "I'm not thinking big enough, Gary. I think I need to start writing some books." So that's when the whole campaign started. He said, "How?" Then all of a sudden he went to the restroom and didn't even realize, you know, Jay was there.
Jay Papasan,
who had already written books. He written Fit for Life book. He helped edit that, and he was a ghostwriter for that book.
Well, it was
Fit for Life.
Fit for Life, right.
So all of a sudden, you know, he started.
And he was brainstorming with Dave Jenks.
Right.
Dave Jenks was his mastermind partner. God rest his soul.
Yeah.
Dave Jenks was his mastermind partner, and they would spend literally hours with flip charts. And Dave had a brilliant mind as well. And they would just mastermind for hours with things. And then when they discovered Jay Papasan, and that his ability to help them write, that changed everything. So, and that was why the first book was written. And it's pretty powerful. It's today, I mean, it's still realistic today. It's still valid today. Things that are in there today are still valid. It's, you know, if you haven't read it, read it.
Before MREA, there were really no models to follow.
Nothing.
You know, I mean, you really, you know, you learn from other agents. That's why we got enamored with Howard Brinton. First of all, we loved Howard Brinton. But second of all, what he did is he interviewed top agents throughout the country, he was a great interviewer, and he would extract their ideas and then share them in a recording with his network, plus a newsletter and samples of what their systems and what they use marketing wise and things like that. So, you know, they say when you copy one thing, it's plagiarism, but when you copy lots of stuff, it's research, right? We did a lot of research, and we surrounded ourselves with people that were doing business at a higher level.
Always.
And that's what really.
Well, that's how we started our career, because there wasn't any education, guys. There was nobody. In fact, my education, I knew I had to write an offer the very first time. And I called the broker and I said, what do I do? And he says, can you read? I said, yeah. He goes, read and fill in the blanks, and hung up on me. That was my education on how to write an offer. And here I am, I'm 22 years old. You know, I'm helping somebody with the largest purchase of their life. And my broker said, read and fill in the blanks. So, you know, that was an interesting aha moment for us. So what we decided to do was we just started watching all the people around us. And, you know, some of them are still in the market today.
Yeah.
You know, the Nancy Leslie's of the world, she was in the market then. And, you know, we watched what they were doing and we just copied. And then when we had copied them all to where we were doing the same amount as them, we looked around and said, okay, well, who's doing more? And that's when we got plugged into the Star Power thing. And we got to see people from all over the country, and we started plugging into them. And then that's actually where Gary Keller pulled a lot of his MREA interviews from, is because they were all top agents. Yep. So he, you know, he had come to Star Power. That's where we met, and was at a Star Power conference. And he would come and he would listen and he would learn. But he also knew that nobody had systematized it, and that it was a lot of airy-fairy ideas, and, you know, well, I'm kind of doing it this way and kind of doing it that way, but nobody had created a duplicatable system. And that's what he wanted to do with MREA. And he's created this duplicatable system that really does work when you follow it. The 7 levels they're there for a reason. And I don't think agents understand that. They want to skip steps. They want to skip levels because they think that, you know, well, I need a buyer specialist. No, you need an admin. You know, you need to follow the model if you really want to succeed at a high level. And that was, those were some of the biggest lessons that we learned. We did a lot of growth organically in the beginning, but
winging it, we found out we were doing a lot of right things, but we also found out we were doing a lot of wrong things.
Right.
But, you know, just to have a system to hire people and to identify behavioral styles in people, I mean, that was something that intrigued me greatly when we first started going to Gary Keller training.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which was called Recruit Select back then, by the way. It's the same thing, career visioning, and then it turned into the 10-step recruiting process, and then it became career visioning. So it's had many names and it's evolved, but that's one of the biggest, I would say, greatest things that has come out of all of this.
Yeah.
I want to thank you guys you and Howard for not making me have to just sit and read it. Actually, that's right there. You guys were talking just a second ago about him being at the Star Power meeting, and it kind of reminds me of the beginning of the book where he's talking about being at some of these events and people coming up to him saying, "Why are you here?"
Right.
Yeah, he's a $1 billion producer.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So when the process started of writing this book, did he grill you? Did he just sit down with you individually and grill you? How did that look?
He interviewed us all individually. He had specific questions. He wanted to know specific processes. At some times, he did even send out videographers to follow you around to watch you do.
And Dave Jenks interviewed everybody on our team.
Yeah, and Dave Jenks interviewed everybody individually.
And everything that we had manualized,
We gave
sent.
them. Anything that we had created, a manual for, we gave to him. And so did most
Having
people.
somebody follow you around with cameras.
Yeah, they
So-
followed her. They actually
Yeah.
went on a listing appointment with us.
No, that was how.
Was it Howard? They followed us around, and Dave Jenks came in and spent, multiple days with our team and interviewed each one individually. What did they do? What did they contribute? What were their lessons and all of these things. So it was fun, but it was also revealing. And, when you're revealed sometimes where your weaknesses are, it can be a little painful. Like Gary said, we did a lot of things naturally good, but we also did a lot of things not so good. And how we spent our time was probably the one thing that we didn't do the best.
Well,
So during this process, what do you think was the most impactful thing that you learned?
Consistency is what I learned. Consistency in all of our processes, consistency in our lead gen, and really understanding and holding our money accountable, which was very important. When we spent $1, did we get $3 back? Or did we just spend $1 and keep spending dollars, and were we not getting a return?
yeah, I think the people part of it too. I think some of the biggest mistakes that we made were, in retrospect, is that we didn't hire people soon enough.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
I think, a lot of us have a tendency to do that because we don't look at it as an investment. We look at it as a cost and another mouth to feed. Whereas Gary always looked at hiring people as the best investment, besides in yourself. The best investment you can make is in yourself. The next best investment you can make is in people, but the right people. So, what we did completely intuitively, and we did it, by how we felt or how they made us feel or whether we thought they could do the job.
I like you, like me, like me,
Right.
like me.
Right. And we were lucky that it worked for the first little bit, but, we were about to learn some hard lessons because that wasn't the right way to do things.
And we did learn those lessons.
Yeah.
We hired the wrong people. You bring the wrong people into your world, it can be chaos. If you don't do expectations dialogues, things like that. We didn't, we just assumed everybody thought like us. Big mistake. Everybody doesn't think like you, and everybody doesn't have your passion, and everybody doesn't have your commitment, and you can't want it for them more than they want it for themselves. So those were some of the tough lessons for
Those
us.
are tough lessons. When you love people, you want them to succeed, but you can't want them to succeed more than they want to succeed. So that's a tough one. But yeah, I mean, that's what intrigued me, that you could be intentional about things. And actually, we never learned business techniques. We didn't study business, so we learned a lot about business from all the training that KW provided. And it really helped us a lot. And the things that changed our lives the most is the relationships that we've established with people like you, with people like Mark Olish, with all the team leaders all the agents that we have here. You guys are what makes this special, what makes it worthwhile. Gary talked about in the book that, it's a journey where he's standing on the shoulders of giants, right? That's the way we feel. We feel that way about you. So this is all, yeah, we've been blessed dramatically and hugely, but it's about the blessings that we're sharing together, because all of you have the same opportunities to grow to whatever levels you aspire to and to become the best version of yourselves. And this is an environment where you can do that and understand that there is a culture and there is an opportunity to build wealth.
Right.
And it's a company that no one ever should want to leave, in my opinion. And if there is, then we need to learn what it was that we were deficient in, and take responsibility for it and try to help people understand what they're saying no to if they're thinking about leaving or not coming.
Gary, I don't know if I told you the story, but when I was interviewing brokerages, when I got my license, I went back to my stepfather, who had been in real estate for quite a while, to ask him where I should go. And I told him the brokers are interviewing, and he's like, "Isn't Gary Ubaldini at that office?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think he is." And he's like, well, you should probably go to that one because he kicked my butt all the time, took all my listings. You want to go look?
Wow, that's
Well,
nice.
that's great. That's great. You know, I was looking at your list here. You asked about a funny story. Well, just so you all know that the very first mega camp, I actually went there kicking and screaming. I really did not want to go. I was burned out. We were doing
Over 200
deals a year. I mean,
with a very small team.
Very, very small team. And most of it was, I mean, all the listing and selling was Gary and I. That was, you know, that was us.
You just had
And we had some admin people. So that was a lot of transactions. And I was doing all of the closings as well. So I was also the transaction coordinator. And I was just tired. We were hustling. We were, you know, working our fannies off.
Like I said, we didn't know leverage.
And we had little
really
kids.
understand leverage.
We had little ones at this point, because this was like 1996. So Brittany was 5 and Ashley was 2. So
specialist.
well, we had one, yeah. And so anyway, I went there kicking and screaming because I really didn't want to go. I was burned out. I was ready to go sell jewelry. I didn't want to sell real estate anymore. I mean, it was a really dark place. And I remember sitting there with my arms crossed like this.
Not the first mega camp.
Yeah, the very first mega camp.
First mega
very,
camp.
very, very first mega camp with my arms crossed. And I only went because Linda and Jimmy, as friends, begged me to go. And I said, okay, I will go. And I started listening to Gary talk. And it was like the light at the end of the tunnel, and it wasn't a train. And within 20 minutes, I was up on my knees and I was leaning across the table, and it was exciting because
It wasn't real estate stuff though.
No.
He was teaching Quantum Leap at the beginning, which was amazing.
Well,
if you haven't attended that course, please do.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
And it was just, he was just giving me a vision that, you know, was a lot bigger than the, you know, the tunnel vision that I had gotten on the sales. You know, it was all about sales. And he was just opening up that vision about, you know, how you can help people, you can teach, you can do all these other things, and it will fill your life and fill others. And that was very exciting for me. And that was when things turned back around.
Mm-hmm.
And but that was 2 years before we joined the company. That was 1996. So
yeah, 98 we joined in December.
December 98. And it was that was a big mistake. You asked one of our biggest mistakes. That was a big mistake waiting. We lost money waiting because we were two-minded. It felt like we were cheating on a spouse. I'm not going to lie to you, because we really did adore our broker. God rest his soul, he just passed. But we adored our broker. He was a good man. And it wasn't because we were unhappy where we were. We just knew this was a better opportunity for our family. And they were pouring into us. They were giving us so much. How could we say no to this amazing opportunity and company? Because we came in just as mega agents, and you know, in the beginning. And then our first project was we had to close down a market center that was in Tarpon Springs, and that was not fun. But some of those people are still with us today. Amy Knightley is one of those people, and she came with her mom and her aunt, and good people, just good people. So, you know, there's always a plan. I believe God always has a plan, and this is a blessing. And Ruth Bessemer, Ruth Bessemer, the #1 agent in the state of Florida. I mean, first agent in the state of Florida, for Keller Williams. But yeah, so there's that was you know, a very interesting time. Mm-hmm. So if you're feeling burned out, especially after this market, hang in there, guys. Take a breath. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a train. In fact, the shift in the market is an amazing opportunity for us all. It truly, truly is.
Well, the worst thing you can do is hide. The best thing you can do is stay engaged
and get into classes.
Keep
plug
learning,
into your market
because
centers.
You know, the light bulb can go off, and all of a sudden when you say, "What was I thinking?" and all of a sudden you're re-inspired, and you got the energy to move forward and go to the next level.
And leadership on this call, look at your training calendars. Make sure that they're vibrant with good, valuable information at a very high level. not newbie stuff. We're talking stuff that anybody can learn, and no, newbies can plug in too. But you want to be training to the 50 million, $100 million producer. So.
And I was told early on to reinvest 10% of what I make into an account that I can reinvest into myself for education. That's paid off big. Being able to go to Mega Camp, go to Family Reunion, go to Bold, those things have really re-inspired me. So I appreciate that learning. And I also want to bring on our military ambassador for South Florida. He's patiently been waiting to ask a question. He's got his hand up. So
hey, Xavier and Jackie.
Hi.
Good morning.
Hi. Well, I'm actually going to defer to my wife here. She brought up something in your sharing, Nikki, that I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so I was like, she wanted to put it in the chat. I said, no, let's just raise our hand. Let's just have a conversation.
Yeah, I'm just curious. You said that one of the things that wasn't working when Gary was looking at your business was how you spent your time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious how you were spending your time that was not how you should have been spending your time. Because I'm probably thinking I'm doing that.
Okay. Well, we weren't leveraged enough. Once again, we were fearful of the expense versus the investment of the right people. And so what we recognized was that we were spending a lot of time doing stuff that could have been easily leveraged to somebody else, because we had that misnomer that only we could do it, or I do it better. And he
Well, this
really
is our baby. We're the only ones that can take care of it.
yeah. And
Or we're
so,
the only ones that can take care of our clients. They only want to talk to us. They don't want to talk to anybody else.
yeah.
All those myths.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
I was doing all the closings. Like I didn't have a transaction coordinator
Okay.
because nobody would, could possibly handle all those issues. And, you've all heard me tell the story of the transaction coordinator that she would, every time there was a problem, she'd bring the file to my office and I'd say, well, just give it to me. And before long, I had a stack of, this big on my desk. And then I started resenting her because I'm thinking, wait a second, I'm doing her job and I'm paying her. And then I realized I can't resent her. It's not her fault. I took the monkey from her and I didn't allow her to do her job.
It's a training.
And it was a training issue. And that's when I remember when she came in the next time with a file and I said to her, so what would you do? What do you think we need to do? And I'll never forget, she turned red all the way up. Like you could see the red coming up her chest. And she just,
You never asked me to think before.
and she was like, she just stood there like, and I just was quiet. And believe me, it was hard for me to keep my mouth shut because you all know I like to talk. And she said, well, I think we should do this. And I said, that's right, go do it. And she scattered off, and like you could see her, she stood two inches taller, like, wow. And off she went. So then every time she came after that, I would say, what do you think? And most of the time she was right on. And sometimes she was, I'd say, well, that's good. And what if we added da, 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 da? And she's like, oh, that's a great idea. Well, just so that because I empowered her, there was a stupidity thing on my part, not allowing her to really do her job. She went on to, she moved back home to Rhode Island, and she created one of the very first transaction coordination businesses, long before it was cool to be a transaction coordinator for the general public. And she still runs that to this day. And she's in Rhode Island. I went there to teach. Wow, this is a while ago. And she came running up to me, hugging me and saying, look what I've done. Look what I've built, all because you empowered me and gave me the confidence to do this. So you don't know what you're doing for or to somebody if you're not giving them the opportunity. So yes, we just weren't leveraged enough, Jack.
How do you balance that in the shifting market? So I just took the shift class with James Shaw. Yeah. And he's like, cut everything, like go through your expenses. And I'm like, oh boy, I just hired, 2 people. And so I was concerned about that.
People are not an expense. People are an investment. This
Okay.
is where we have to change our thinking, right,
Right.
Eric?
Right.
And you know, we understand that because we were terrified to hire our first assistant. You know, oh my God, now we're responsible to somebody else's to feed somebody else. And you know, what if we don't have you know, a good year? You know, what if instead of saying, you know what, they're an investment and they should help me increase my business.
Okay.
That's the piece. You got to hold those investments accountable, just like you hold anything you invest your money in accountable. And they should be bringing business to the table, whether it's by releasing you from doing other stuff so that you have more time to generate more business, whether it's them releasing you so you have more time to relax and to rejuvenate and recover so that you are better at what you do. So you have to decide what that investment is. And, and, you know, this is where I'm going to take you right back to career visioning, mastering career visioning. And, you know, I'm still not mastered it, but really working hard on mastering career visioning and doing the full process can change your world, Jackie. Because if you
just made me realize I need to be in Mark Olish's class tomorrow.
There you go.
There you go.
You need to be, because if you're doing it right and you're bringing the right people into your world changes. I mean, Mark Olish has been with Gary and I for over 20 years. You know, that's a long time.
He started as a brand new agent.
He was a brand spanking new agent. And look where his trajectory was. So it just so that you know, don't ever worry about the investment in people unless you're over investing in people. Sometimes, so if you went to career visioning, remember it talks about make sure it's the right hire versus are you hiring for one person that can only do 1/3 of the job? Then you have to hire 3 people to do one person's job. So just that's what we're talking about, making sure that they're the right people. You know, my investment in hiring Tamara, she does 5 people's jobs. Okay. So I mean that's an investment that is paid off tenfold. But just so I want you to think about that. So and you know, you're a great leader, so you should just pour into them but always go to 30, 60, 90 because that's how you find out the best ways to keep them engaged.
Yeah, the training issue, I have the same thing where it's
we all have that.
Have to be able to slow down, train someone, you know, to be able to get the momentum back.
Yeah.
So
you gotta slow down to go fast.
Yeah.
And that's hard. That's hard when you're used to just go. And you want to say, just watch me. And then now you do it. And
right.
Yes. And then when we don't talk to them again until they screw up.
Yes.
And then they are completely deflated.
Yes.
Or we do what Tony DeSillo finally called seagull management. We fly in, we dump, and we leave. You know, he called that seagull management. And then, you know, we wonder why they don't succeed or they're not getting fulfilled or they're not getting their needs met because we're not pouring into them.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That was really valuable.
Yes, thank you so much.
That's the Kool-Aid man. I call that the Kool-Aid man.
Hey!
And he's wearing a very relevant shirt today. Thank you.
All right. What else can we get through? There you go. MREA.
Right, so we're pretty much at time, and you're absolutely right. There's no way we were going to get through all of my questions. Does anybody else in the group want to ask a question quickly before we go to end?
Yeah, so you guys talked about being the #1 agents in Florida back in with ERA, and it sounded like
that was with RE/MAX.
RE/MAX, and it sounded like you were still working during the day. Were you still?
When we started RE/MAX, we were still working at night. Yes.
So I guess my question is like, what do you think it was that you guys did, you know, that made you the #1 agents in Florida, you know, all the way back then? Like, what was it?
We weren't #1 back then.
Not in the beginning.
We didn't become #1 until
7th year. 6th, 7th year. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what was it? What were you doing back then? You know, those years, 6, 5, 6, 7.
we were lead generating and marketing.
Lead generating like crazy.
Lead generating and marketing, and making and calling, lead generating, marketing, and our marketing system at the time was working so well that they were actually prospecting us.
Yeah, we were still prospecting.
We were the first ones to do outdoor advertising. We were the first ones to do TV advertising. So, when you're first in the marketplace, it can generate a lot of.
Do you have any of those old Gary and Nikki commercials?
We actually did a TV show.
Yeah, it wasn't commercials. It was advertising houses. It wasn't, we weren't doing videos of any kind. It was just advertising houses. But what we did was we advertised sold houses every time we sold one. And back then, hardly anything was selling. Like right now, everything is selling. So you're not, it doesn't matter. It doesn't do, the consumer says, so what when you sell the property? Everybody's selling them, right? But as the market shifts, sold stories are going to start working better.
Right.
So success stories, testimonials are even better. So whenever we would say something like we sold the property at, 99% of list price and 30 days on the market, after being on the market for 6 months with
another realtor
company and not selling, that had an impact.
Right.
And then when you do it repeatedly, and it was on channel 16, and it was Vision Cable back then. So everybody would flip through it and stop on the real estate channel, and it was our channel, man.
Yeah.
It was our channel, and that really helped a lot.
Yeah. Well, we created, we invested and put a lot of money back into our business to create this marketing machine to generate the business coming towards us, as well as we still did lead generation. We called every single day. We were on the phones. What we didn't do, so that Brian, that I think if we had done back then, if we had done more lead generation into our database, if we had actually cultivated our database the way that we've learned how to cultivate it since we've been in Keller Williams, I believe that would have catapulted us, because your database is acres of diamonds. It's the old book, Acres of Diamonds. Right. And we didn't spend time in our database. We spent time finding new business, prospects, business, right. Which was okay.
Right.
But at the same token, it was a lot harder than,
right.
We had naturally developed a lot of repeat and referral business just because of our relationships that we created, but we didn't do that systematically. So.
And that wasn't until Gary,
Right.
Right. Gary Keller taught us to really pay attention to all of those pieces.
That 33 touch program, we know.
That was our big aha. Oh my gosh, we have this database over here that is just full of money and opportunity that we have not nurtured at all.
We contacted them more by marketing means than by
picking up the phone.
or
Interesting. Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. It's our pleasure.
Always.
Good to see you, Brian.
Yes, sir.
It's good to be here. It's good to be seen.
Yeah, big man on the street there.
That's first.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, Brian had a 6-figure month, everybody, and we're really proud of him. That was last month. He had, and by the way, Brian is a single agent. There he is. Yeah. Woo!
Awesome. Congratulations.
Go, Brian. Proud of him.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for the question. And thanks for calling me yesterday to check and see how I'm doing. That's how good of a person you are.
Well, you're a Y. You're a Y. It was DTD2. You're a Yarbrough. You're a Y.
Hey, you systematize it. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Does anybody else have any questions? Because we're pretty much at time.
One other thing, Brian, that we did is every time we had our best month ever, we asked ourselves, how can we make this happen every month?
Yes. Yeah.
We made that a game, and just try to make that a game as best you can, and go for it. You'll learn so much by playing that game. No doubt about it.
Andrew just said an agent sent me a postcard they found from a house that they sold from your team in '91.
Wow. Wow, I might have had a little more here.
James Torrance said, what are the 2 things in your last meeting with GK that you can share for the future of the MREA agent and market center? Well, what he shared was the stair step. I'll show you. This is what Gary Keller was teaching. It's a stair step. Okay, so your career is like this. Your career goes, you grow, and then you flatten. You grow, and then you flatten. You grow, and then you flatten. He said, and this is when we flatten is when we tend to get frustrated. He said, but what you got to remember is that this flattening piece is really, really important, because he calls it the get it right time. This is when we adjust our systems. This is when we hire the people we need, or we work more on creating new systems and processes, and we train our people better. And what that does is allows us to continue to have growth, and so that when you're getting it right, you continue to grow and you can better your service. And so he was teaching this to $1 billion agent, and you know, it's right there. It's right there in your manuals. If you're going to go to 30, 60, 90, you're going to find this in there. And he's been teaching this for years, but for whatever reason, it just went ping in my brain. You know, like you say, you're not ready for it until you're ready for it. And it was so powerful, because as I was sitting there thinking, this is where, you know, these are some of the things that we're going through in some of the businesses. This is what I'm watching some of our agents going through in their businesses. And right now, everybody's so busy that they don't realize that they're going to have a flatten out, and not to be afraid of that flatten, but to use that time to really get better at what you're doing, and to really invest in your business.
Amen.
So
Yeah.
that's what that was. So James, there you go.
The other question that was in there is, what was the name of the author who wrote that book you were talking about, the Aladdin Factor?
Mark Victor Hansen.
Mark Victor Hansen. Yeah.
He and Jack Canfield wrote the Chicken
Soup for the
Soul
Soul.
books. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mark Victor Hansen.
The Aladdin Factor.
Great. All right. Thank you guys so much for coming on and spending time with us. I know you guys are busy, so appreciate you guys.
Our pleasure.
It's our pleasure. It was
pleasure.
fun. Thanks for having us.